If you ever wanted to find speaking gigs for you, someone from your team, your founder, or your CEO, you already know how painful it is and how many hours you may need to scrape and find all this data to identify if a podcast, in our case, or an event, is still active, if there is a good fit, and who is the stakeholder behind it in order to reach out. But don't worry, because I got you. I've built a few automations using Google Sheets, Clay, and Notion. And I'm gonna show you how I created the first database on Google Sheets and how I'm using Clay to enrich this data and how I'm pushing all this information in our Notion database in order to proceed with the next steps. But let's dive into it. So, in short, there are a few ways that you can find relevant podcasts for your case, but one way is to use a search operator. A search operator is like that. You can use site, and you can use a site that usually hosts or distributes podcasts. And as you can see in our case, I'm interested in podcasts in growth and SaaS. So you can use this SERP operator in order to find relevant podcasts. And then you can use an extension like Instant Data Scraper in order to download all this information into a beautiful CSV file. But if you have the capability, you can even use Clay's Claygent, which is Clay's AI search agent, and he can do all this work for you. But let's dive into our Google Sheet after, let's say, you have extracted or you have found all the relevant podcasts in your case. As you can see, here is our first database, which is on Google Sheets. And as you can see, there are a few columns. The first one is podcast name, podcast link. Another really important column is the still active column, because we need to find out and enrich information for podcasts that are still active. The host name, this is also important, email, LinkedIn URL, and so on. So basically what we've done here, and basically all this information is blurred because actually I don't want to have any problems with the names and the information showed in this video. And actually what we've done is that we've connected our database, our Google Sheet file, with Clay. And as you can see, the first columns, the columns with green, are the same ones that we used from our existing Google Sheet file. As you can see, there are podcast name, podcast link, still active, host name, and email. Email basically for those that I could find the email or that the email was easily accessible and available to everyone. But as you can see, here are the important stuff, and I have marked them with yellow, and the yellow shows that these columns are created and enriched use Clay. And I have also marked these two columns with red color because these columns lead to an action, and this action actually enriches the existing files. The first one is enriching and updating an existing row to our Google Sheet file, and the other one, it's actually sending all this information into our Notion database, and I will show you in detail in the end. As you can see, here is the host email address, and actually the first thing that you want to know is what is the email, and actually the active email that the host of the podcast that you are trying to reach out is using. So basically, I'm using Claygent, and actually Claygent is doing all the work for me. What I've asked it to do is to find out and extract, let's say, the email addresses for the hosts using the podcast name and also the host name. And also I've shared with the Claygent a few instructions regarding the output and how it should look like. And also, if it can't find the exact, let's say, email, add the label with no email found. And yes, as you can see, here is a new column after doing all this research, and here are the results. And from there, I used OpenAI's connection with Clay in order to combine the fields that I already have, and the fields are the email that I found on my own and the email addresses that Claygent found. And I asked OpenAI to create a column where only the emails that are actually validated will be showcased. No other fields will be written there, like no email found or any other field, only the active emails. And also to try to find out if there is any connection or if we are missing something regarding our own research and if Claygent email looks more relevant. So actually OpenAI is doing this work in order to validate the emails on its own. And from there we are using again Claygent in order to find out the LinkedIn URL of the host because we weren't able to find a few emails. So to the people that we can't communicate through email, we can send them a message and a connection request to LinkedIn. So we asked Claygent to find out the LinkedIn URL based on the host name and the podcast name, because in most cases the people are using a company page or something relevant to the podcast, or there are a few mentions and so on. So we need Claygent to validate all this information and trying to search in order to identify the LinkedIn URL of the host's profile. And here are all the URLs. And from there, what we have asked it to do is actually to update the existing rows on our database, which is on Google Sheets. And also, and here is the interesting part, is that we have connected our Notion account and our existing database in order to create pages automatically when we enrich the information. And actually, as you can see, we've created this table on Notion. As you can see, that name is speaking engagements. And in our case, the speaking engagements are actually podcast opportunities. So as you can see, here is the table. And all this information are actually automatically added by Clay. And also I've created an automation on Notion. When a page is created to our Notion database, the status of this, let's say, opportunity is review. And actually the reviewer from this task is George, who is going to give me, let's say, the approval in order to proceed with the next step, which is actually to send an outreach message. And basically this is it. And actually we're trying to track all of these opportunities using a status table. This is actually a Kanban board where we can see the status of each podcast, if we contacted them, if we send it and follow-up email, if we booked them, if they declined, and so on. And also we have created a calendar view where we see only the podcasts where the status is booked and actually there is a recording date. If the recording date field is empty, it's not actually live here. So pretty much this is it. And actually I wanted to show all these things in order to showcase how important it is nowadays to start using and leveraging tools like Clay and other AI tools in order to automate a few stuff that was really time consuming in the past. This is it for today. And if you like this kind of videos, feel free to let me know and I will create more. And also if you need or if you have something in mind or any crazy ideas regarding workflows and processes that we can build using tools like Clay or Google Sheets, Notion, Atio, and so on, I will be more than happy to do it. So thanks and keep experimenting.